Good morning. We had a foggy one today. Boys had a 2-hour delay at school, so I got to get ready to take them here in 10 or 15 minutes now that that's about over with. And we're going to go do some yield checks today. That's on the agenda. But I'm sure that corn is soaking wet at the moment, and you don't want to walk out there. So we'll get around to it. Just dropped the boys off at school. We still have quite a haze. The fog is lifted, but still hazy, not sunny today. So it's probably going to get super humid and hot this afternoon, which will make walking in cornfields lots of fun. I was considering going to Berkey towards the end of my corn scouting mission today to look at the corn down there. But given that everything is still soaking wet here, maybe we'll just go to Berkey first, check those out here this morning, and then we'll come back this afternoon and do some fields around here. So we'll go pick a couple fields at Berkey, and let's see what that corn looks like. It's been a lot drier there. I expect that corn to be not quite as good, but the ground there is a little more consistent and better. So you win some, you lose some things, and it may be really good corn there. Who knows? We have made it to the farm here at Berkey. Sun's starting to come out. The fog is lifted. Maybe that's just here and it's still hazy back at Waldron, or maybe it's gone there too. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to walk out in this cornfield here and take a look at some stuff. And just driving by, actually stuff looks better here than I expected it to, given how hot and dry we were and how especially dry it was here. Now, the other night when we got that 1/4 inch of rain back at Waldron, we had like 7/10 here, so it's gonna be a little muddier maybe, I don't know, but the corn's doing better now because it's gotten some rain. So I'm gonna drop this in here and we're gonna talk about it just for a second, and then we're gonna go pick some ears. So I have made up this Google sheet that is basically my corn yield estimator, which does all the math for me. So we put in our farm and field, and you can put in location where you pull the sample from the field and the variety. Basically, the light gray boxes are optional information that you can fill in, and then the dark gray boxes are the information that we have to fill in. So we're going to go out and we're going to do a stand count to get a population, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that once we get out there. And then we're going to pull, I've got for 5 years here. We'll probably pull 5 years, bring them out. You could just do 3. And then we should do that. So really we should do this in 3 different spots in the field, and it should give us a fairly good idea of what the actual stuff's going to yield. But it'll calculate out our yield for each sample, and then the averages for the field. And yeah, pretty handy little spreadsheet. So we'll leave that sit there while we go out here and pull our first 5 years. Now, the trick to doing this and getting a good quality result and sample is to try and find something that is a representative area of the field, which can be quite difficult, especially back at Waldron. But here at Berkey, these fields are pretty much all the same soil type and flat, and there's not a ton of variation. So as long as we get off of the compacted areas in the end rows, like this, we really should be able to get a pretty good sample. So we're going to walk out here a little ways. We're going to get off of these ends, get out in the field a little bit, and find a row, and we're going to pull our sample from. Sidebar, while we're walking here, look at the cracks in our soil that we had. Now this is after we got 7/10 of an inch of rain 2 days ago, but we've still got these massive cracks in the ground. You can kind of see some roots going back and forth through there, or broken off roots. Look at that down there. That is really cool to see. They go way down in there. That is because of how dry we were here. So we have high clay content in these soils, and what we know about clay-based soils is that they shrink and expand based on moisture content. And so when this soil gets really dry, there's not as much moisture in it. It's going to shrink, it contracts, and then you get these big cracks forming, and they go deep, and that's what helps build soil structure and helps to alleviate some of the compaction in our soil, this wetting and drying process. So now as we get rain, the soil kind of swells back up, it fills those cracks in. We don't see that near as much. And we didn't get enough rain to saturate the soil profile here, so that's why we still have cracks. But yeah, that's what happens, and that happens over and over and over again. And then you throw in a freeze cycle in the winter when you get the water that's in the soil to freeze and cracks it even more. And that's kind of the natural way of dealing with some of the compaction that we have in addition to our tillage passes. So this corn out here is 111 day, 11V76 is the number. This is my favorite corn. I love this hybrid. It has been fantastic for us. So we did spray V5 and VT fungicide out here. Actually, it was probably closer to a R1, maybe R2 fungicide, but it got sprayed. So we're just kind of looking at the leaves. I don't see any tar spot right off the top. Looking at it here, really the leaves are pretty darn healthy. The bottom of the plants are starting to fire. That's definitely due to the dry weather stress that we had last week or earlier this week. But for the most part, plants look nice and healthy. It's a lot greener than I expected it to be. I expected these to be fired quite a bit more than what it is. Now this was planted a little bit later. It was May 19th when we were down here planting. So yeah, we'll see. Let's do a stand count. So I brought a tape measure with me, and what we need to measure off is 1/1000th of an acre. And depending on your row spacing, that's pretty easy to do. We are in 30-inch rows, and so 1/1000th of an acre would be 30 inches wide and 17 feet 5 inches in length. Well, that is right here, from the end of my tape measure to there. And so what we are going to do now is in one row, we're going to count how many harvestable ears. It's not about plants anymore. I don't care how many actual plants we have. What I want to know is how many ears do we have that we can actually get in a combine and harvest. So we're going to go through here and count in this row, and I will probably count 2 rows, do both, and then we'll take an average just to get a little bit more accurate. But that's the information that we need to know. So my line is there, which means this is our first plant. So this is our first harvestable ear. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This one we are not going to count because there's a little bit of a harvestable ear there, but it's just a tiny one. It will throw off our average. So we're at 12. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So we got 31 ears in that stretch there that I would consider harvestable good ears. There was one that was a little iffy small, but when you throw the two, the one that I didn't count with the one that I did together, and it averages out to 1 ear. So there's our 31. Let me count the other side real quick. All right, so on the other side, I got 30. So we're going to call it 30.5, which means there would be about 30,500 harvestable ears in an acre of this corn, right in this particular spot. Okay, now we need to pick 5 ears as at random as possible. Some people will assign a number, like you pick the 2nd, 7th, 10th, 15th, 20th, whatever, ears. I kind of just try and walk through and pick them at random. Easier said than done. You don't want to pick the biggest ears. You don't want to pick the smallest ears. You want to pick the average ears or a representative sample. So that's the idea. Let's just assign it some numbers. Let's see. We need 5 ears. There's going to be roughly 30. So that'd be like every 6. But we might not have that many in every one. Let's do every 5th ear. So we'll go 1, 6, 11, something like that. So number 1 is right here. Just going to throw it on the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's a small one. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. How many is that? I think that's 5. Yeah, that's 5. Okay, good enough. Should have gone every 6th ear if I was going to start with 1, but whatever, it's fine. All right, that's all we need out here. We've got our 5 ears. We don't really need any other information from out here. We know what the plants look like. We know everything looks relatively good for as dry as it's been. And we can take these ears out, husk them, and start counting some kernels. Anybody need a golf ball? That one's out here a ways. I'm surprised. Got out of the field there and we husked our ears, and here's the first thing that I noticed immediately is we are barely, if at all, dented. This corn's got a long ways to go, a lot farther than any of our corn back at Waldron. Now it's the later planted, May 18th, 19th, whatever I said there, and It's 111-day corn, so it's full season stuff. I expect to be here last shelling corn. That was the intent. But it's not even close to being done, which means the rain that we're getting right now is actually going to help us more than I thought. That's good. So we lack a little consistency out here. There's quite a difference between this one and this one. But that's a really nice ear. Now, one thing I do know about this hybrid is that it does not throw big girthy ears. It flexes in kernel depth and length. And so like you can see that length of this ear here, that's pretty darn good ear. These ones are not bad, but the kernels should be fairly deep on it. That's where the yield comes from on this hybrid. You're never going to see 18 around ears with this hybrid, or very rarely. 14s and 16s are pretty common. We expect that. Doesn't matter. It's still really good corn. So first thing we're going to do is come back into our iPad here, and we know our population for this trial, this strip, was 30,500. Okay, so that's the base information. Now, what we need to do is count the rows and kernels on every one of these ears. So we're going to start with this one. We count how many rows around, how many kernels long. Meh, it's a meh ear. That was 14 by 32. So I put that into our calculator, 14 by 32. Now we do the rest. All right, so we've counted up our ears. Here's what we've got. We've got 14 by 32, 14 by 33, 16 by 35, a 14 by 38, and a 12 by 41. If that one had 16 around, it'd be a heck of an ear. It's got 12, but that's okay. Now, we've accounted for population, so the number of ears. We've accounted for the number of kernels, essentially, rows times length, right? The one variable that we have not accounted for yet is the size of the kernels, okay? So with corn, we typically, on average, would figure that there's going to be roughly 90,000 kernels in a bushel of corn. But that can vary drastically, and how much it varies can make a huge impact. Look at the size difference just in these ears, right? Look how much bigger these kernels are than these kernels. It can make a huge difference in the total yield at the end of the year. And so I always figure, you figure 90,000 to be conservative. You look at the other possibilities. You know, maybe it's 100,000 kernels per bushel and the kernels are exceptionally small. Then your yield's going to be a little bit less. Maybe they're really big kernels and you get lots of that kernel depth and girth. And one thing you'll notice about this hybrid is it has a very small cob. That cob is tiny. And so there's a lot of depth in these, and they're still growing. But that's just the genetics. This one typically has a little bit bigger kernels on average, especially being less rows around with the really small cob and deep kernels. We probably are closer to 80,000 kernels or maybe 75,000 kernels per bushel. So my calculator here figures it both ways. So let's close this out and let's look and see. So if we're at 90,000, it's going to be 170 bushel corn. If they're 80,000, it's 190 bushel corn. If there are only 70,000 kernels in a bushel, then we're pushing 217. That's about where I figured. I would guess that we're pushing out here in that spot. It's probably somewhere right around 200. 190 to 200 would be my guess. We should go pull a couple more samples from this field to get a better idea of the average, but that's the process. Now, I'm not going clear to the back of this field to pull a sample back there, but we can go to the opposite corner over here up by the road and pull another one. Just going to walk through the barns here real quick. We got some equipment that's going to have to get brought back to Waldron here quickly. We got the 8430 and the air seeder, which we're going to need to plant wheat. We planted a lot of double crop beans with it, so we just need to go through the row units and make sure that everything's adjusted right, nothing's wore out. I don't see too much wear on the boots. Everything looks like it'll be fine. But yeah, we need to go through that. And our corn head is down here. So we're going to need to get this back. It should be ready to go. There's one shield that did not get put back on when it was in the shop. It goes on over here on this PTO shaft, and right here, it's on the bench. We noticed that because we're cleaning the bench off, and I'm like, hey, we should put that back on there. I should have brought it today, but I didn't think about it. So anyway, that needs to get back to Waldron fairly soon too, and we're gonna look at a field later today that we might be in corn before we're in beans. We'll see. And then we've got our third semi-truck over here that's also going to need to come back for harvest. Okay, well, we came out to another spot in this field. I counted, we've got my ears, we're going to get them out of here and see what we've got in this particular spot. We had a 30,000 stand here. I got a 29 and a 31, which averages to 30. Maybe a touch more dented on 4 of these. This one here's not, but they look all right. This one we got a little tip back. That's from the dry weather. Don't like seeing that. But this is a pretty nice ear here. So let's get my spreadsheet and put them in there. All right, well, we got all our numbers put in for this one. This spot here is just a little lower yielding than the first one. 208, 183, 162. So now our field averages, you can see there. There's nothing wrong with any of that corn. Like, we've been dry here. If we average 180 down here, I think we did okay. So according to this, in these 2 spots averaged together, yeah, 185 to 200, somewhere in that ballpark, should catch it with this hybrid. We'll see. We're gonna go over to one more spot, a different field, a different hybrid, get some different ear types, and look and see what it looks like. Dang, from the road, this corn looks really good. It's nice and green. I'm really surprised how green stuff is. Look at these. Look at these big flexy ears. Oh, I love this hybrid. All right, so this is a 110-day hybrid, 10L16. And we're gonna come out here in the main part of the field and take a look. Looks pretty darn good. Leaves are healthy again. Our fungicide did its job very, very well. This hybrid is pretty susceptible to some leaf diseases. You have to spray it with fungicide, but it works. And when you do, we don't get it. Like northern corn leaf blight is pretty common in this hybrid, and I don't see any out here. It can get tar spot in it. Not as bad as some other ones. This one's not terrible on tar spot, but it can get it, and we don't have any. Not here anyway. So that's awesome. And we're fairly green down. Like, we burn up a little bit last week, but we got green leaves touching the ground. I don't know. It's pretty hard to be upset about that. This looks really good to me. All right. Well, our standout here was at 27 and a 28, so 27.5. So not as much, but this hybrid we plant thin because it's got some stalk issues and root issues, and so you let it flex, and it's got really, really good ear flex. These ears I'm carrying out are huge, so this is going to be an interesting one to total up. It's going to look different, but just standing here on these enders, like, look at that ear. That ear is massive. We got a gap right here, but it flexes like crazy. It's amazing what kind of ears you can get on this stuff. So I just put it in as sample 3. I didn't start a new field here, even though we're in a new field. But this is going to be interesting because you can see our population. We're at 27.5 versus 30,000, 30,500. So we've given up 2,500 to 3,000 ears per acre. Oops. But look at our kernels. We're at 16 by 36, 16 by 38, 16 by 34, 16 by 39, 18 by 34 versus 14, 12, 12, 14, 16. So, is the bigger ears, more kernels per ear, going to make up for the lower population? Well, let's see. Yeah. Yeah, it is. So now the biggest difference is the kernel size may be bigger on the smaller ears. So maybe over here we're comparing an 80,000 to a 90,000 here, right? So then if we're at 80,000 kernels on sample 1, we're at 190. If we're at 90,000 kernels on sample 3, we're at 181. So actually the other field was better. I don't think that's quite the case. I think these are closer to 80,000 and these may be 75. But that's 200 bushel corn pretty much all day, and those ears look it. It looks it. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to take it. We're going to call our corn down here good, not great. It's going to be a good crop. And let's head back to Waldron and do a bunch more fields, but we're going to go get lunch first. Wait, before lunch, we got to look at our double crop beans. They're looking a lot better than the last time I was down here. We got some height. We've canopied well above the wheat stubble. Hey, these aren't so bad. These are not so bad at all. Look at that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's pull a plant up here. Let's see what we got. Ugh. All right, all right. They got beans on them. We're going to have something here to combine. for planted March, or June 28th, I think it was. Those look pretty good. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 nodes. Still got flowers up there, although they're about done flowering. That's not bad. For double crop beans, that's not bad. This one, yeah, we got more flowers on some of these other ones yet. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, yeah. I thought these beans were going to be terrible just based on how dry it's been. And then I didn't think they looked that good the last time I was here, but that was 2-3 weeks ago when we sprayed them. Remember that day? Yeah, I remember that day. But boy, do they look good now. Clean. They might be 40 bushel double crops. Beans are extremely difficult to do any kind of yield estimate. Like what we're doing now with the corn, it's not 100%. It's not foolproof and just dead on accurate, but we can get a pretty good idea, right? And I've done this long enough that I can just go out and look at the corn and the ears and say, yeah, this is about what this is going to yield. Beans, you can't do that. You can't just look at a bean, look at the, it's really, really hard to tell. You can say, yeah, these are going to be good. They're not going to be good, but to say those are 40 bushel beans or 60 bushel beans or these are going to make 82 or whatever the number is, nah, you can't do it. You can try and count pods. Even that's pretty inexact. So for double crop beans, those look really, really good. I am pretty darn happy there. Okay, we are back up towards Waldron. At one of our fields, we're actually about 10 miles from the home farm. This is one of the later planted and farther away, but it's a 102-day corn, so it's a little earlier maturing than some of our other stuff. And we're just gonna walk out here and do the same thing. We're only gonna take one count in this field, probably only gonna do one in most of these fields, but I want to see what it looks like and where we're at maturity wise. Oh yeah, this corn's gonna be early on the harvest schedule. See these ears tipping down already? Once those ears tip down, they're done. There's no more water or nutrients going into them. Husks are turning brown. Actually, I like how green the corn is for brown husks on it. That means it's maturing and fairly healthy. That's a pretty good sign that the corn's going to be pretty decent. So I don't mind seeing that. It doesn't look terrible. You can still see the band of moisture right around the base of the plants. No, there's no 360 rain out here, but when it rains, that water catches on these leaves and it funnels it right down to the base, so it ends up concentrating the rain a little bit. Kind of a cool thing. Well, let's see what we got here. So, quite a bit of difference on one side of the road to the other. On the left here, we only had 26 ears, but there was 2 or 3 of them that the deer had bitten the top of the plant off, so that hurt. And on the other side, we had 31. So I'll have to do a little math there. 26 and 31. What's that put us at? 28.5 average. All right, let's pull some ears and take them out of here. Pretty good looking ears here. This is going to be good corn out here, and it's healthy. There's no tar spot. Everything looks good. 102 days, so it's in the home stretch here. We'll break one of these apart when we're done, but they look good. Really nice ear of corn, nice deep big long kernels. You can see on this half here how we've kind of got 2 different colors in these kernels. Come on, focus. So the end of this kernel is hard and starchy, if I can break it with my fingernail. The inner part of the kernels are still soft and juicy. Basically that white line there is what we call the milk line, where it's turned from milk to starch. And it starts when it dents, it starts at the end of the kernel, and it slowly works its way down to the tip. I would call this half milk line. So we're a week or 2 from black layer, physical maturity of the plant, and when it's technically done. It'd still be sort of wet and it's got to dry down before we can harvest it, but it's done at least. So we put in our information here. I didn't go through and delete all of the other information from Berkey, but let's see if that does it. Yeah, so if we just look at this field here, if we get 90,000 kernels in a bushel, that's 180. If we're at 80,000, it's 202. This is typically a big kerneled hybrid. We should be somewhere in that 200 to 210 range would be my guess out here. This is good corn. I'm happy with that. Let's go do the one everybody wants to see. Let's go check out the irrigated corn. We're just down the road from it a little ways. He's tired of seeing this view yet? That's what you get. View from a cornfield. This corn is enormous. It's very tall. Well, this is the irrigated field. It's a spot that's irrigated. You can in fact see the water in the bands yet from the last pass that we made over this, and it's going to be here tomorrow again, so that is excellent. I don't know. This is not the best part in the field, but let's see what we get here, I guess. You should expect to be a little disappointed right now. Like, don't get your hopes up that we're going to get a 350 yield estimate. It's not going to happen. But I'm curious what our ear count's going to be. It should be a little higher than the other ones we've seen. And the kernel size on this is going to be the big wild card. These kernels are going to be bigger than anything else that we've got because we're keeping the water to it. We've poured the nutrients on this. And so it's hard to say what that kernel per bushel count is going to be and therefore get a good yield estimate. A little higher on the stand. We got a 33 and a 32. So we'll call that 32.5, which is the highest we've done so far today. Look at all the aphids on this cocklebur plant. Yikes. Stay out of my corn. Well, there's certainly nothing wrong with any of those ears. None of them are overly impressive, but they all look really good. The thing I notice is this is 112-day corn, and we're full dent. We're much farther along than some of this other stuff we've looked at. Now, it was planted early-ish, but I think that just keeping the water to it has kept the plants progressing, and it's moving that maturity along, so it's going to dry down faster. Pretty darn consistent. 14 by 42, 43, 40, 41, and a 16 by 37. Those litters are all basically the same size, so that is good, and we had a lot of them at 32.5. And there are better places in this field. There are places that were planted thicker than this, so but there's probably worse places too. So what does that equal? Well, somewhere between 211 and 270, let's say, and I bet we're closer to the 70,000 kernels per bushel than the 90, so maybe 230 to 250, 260 range. Yeah, that's what I expect to see out here. So the irrigation is certainly helping. It's doing its job. Oh, we made a quick stop back here at the farm for a few minutes. Talked to Dad, see what he was up to. He's cutting trees again today. All right, we're gonna go the opposite direction from where we have been from the farm here. And look at another cornfield. This is south and west of the home farm here, and it's been drier there, and this corn has just fallen apart from the road. It looks not great. So we're gonna go see what we got for a yield estimate, and we're gonna see how far along it is. I kind of think that this corn may be ready for harvest in about 2 to 3 weeks. Like, we may start with this corn before we do any beans even. So let's go look. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just starting to dent or half milk line, but the plants are about dead, at least along the road. I want to know what it looks like out in the field. All right, so here's the field that I'm talking about. I'm going to walk out here to the edge of the road so that I can show you kind of what it looks like down there, but this corn has deteriorated quickly. So just look at how brown it is all along, and then down in the dip it's a little green there, but there's a lot of very brown. Now out here it may not be quite so bad, but let's go see. This field was planted on May 5th. It is 106-day corn. And yeah, some of it out here is pretty brown. Now most of the ears are still upright. A few of them starting to hang there. But this corn's about done. We're more than 2 weeks away from harvest, especially as we come down here into the low ground and it's going to get a little greener. It's gonna be a little variable, I would say, out here. Question is any of it any good? Well, let's go ahead and take our stand count. Here's what I've determined so far. This corn isn't dying from tar spot. We don't have that out here, so it's the dry weather, and you can see the massive cracks in our soil. This has been a lot drier here than we have been back at the home farm, and we did not get that much rain here the other day. Maybe a 1/4 inch, so it's dry. That's what's causing this corn to dry down the way it is dry weather. That said, it's not as bad out in the field as it looks along the road, but I would not be surprised at all if this is where we start shelling corn. It may not be the first 2 or 3 weeks of September. It may be, you know, the first week of October, but still, it's coming. Let's pick some ears, do some stand counts, pick some ears, and see where it's at. 28,000 population. There's our 5 ears. They all look halfway decent. I also picked this one on the way out. This is from one of those plants that was just about dead. You can see the kernels are not very big. Decent rows around, but just small kernels and no milk line there. It wasn't quite a black layer, but it's not far away. So that one, not gonna be great corn. Small kernels. Let's count these ones up though. Had some length, every one of those ears. One was 39, all the rest were in the 40s, but they were mostly 14 rounds. So let's see. If we had 70,000 kernels a bushel, it's 247 bushel corn. Now, the thing is, those are going to be smaller kernels. We're going to be between the 80 and 90, not the 70 and 80. So it's still 200 bushel corn, right? 192 to 216. That's right around 200 if you ask me, 205. And I believe this field can do that. There's obviously spots that are going to be much worse, and whether we'll average that or not, I don't know. But some of it's still going to be good corn. All right. Well, now that you've watched me walk through cornfields and count ears all day, I hope you understand how that process works. I thought, you know, I showed you my spreadsheet, but I didn't really explain the calculations. So let me show you that real quick, and we'll kind of wrap up for the day. So I pulled my spreadsheet up here on the computer so we can show it a little easier. But I showed you this earlier, and you know, we've got the critical information in the dark gray that you have to enter, right? You have to have a population, you have to have the ears, rows, and kernels. I don't think you have to have all 5 of them in there to get a, I don't know, let's see. Yeah, it still gives you an yield even if you only put 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever in there. But the more you put in, the better your average is going to be. And then down here, it's calculating it out based on kernels per bushel. Well, the step that you don't see in here is this hidden column, and this is the number of kernels on each. No, that can't be right. What is that? Hold on. Kernels per acre. That's got to be kernels per acre. Yeah, those are kernels per acre for each year, and then this one here is the average kernels per acre for all 5 of those ears, and then this calculated number here is basically taking this, dividing it by this number to give me this number, right? So here's the simple formula. You need to know ears per acre, rows per ear, kernels per row. Those 3 things, you take the kernels per row times the rows per ear, whether that's a single ear or an average, that gives you kernels per ear. Take the kernels per ear times the number of ears per acre, that gives you kernels per acre. You divide that number by your estimated seeds per bushel, in our case usually 90,000 or whatever those numbers are, that gives you an estimated yield per acre. That's the formula. Length times rows times population divided by 90 or 80, whatever it is. So, and keep in mind that 17 feet 5 inches is 1/1000th of an acre. That gives you a pretty easy way to figure out what your ear count is, and it's harvestable ears, not plants, because there will be some plants out there without ears on them or with very small ears that we just don't count. I suppose before we wrap this up, we better take our fuel up to the generator. Don't need it running out. We're keeping up good now, though. After the little bit of rain we got the other day, it's helping us get across the field without it being quite so stressed and dry, and just gotta keep going. We're not to half milk line yet. The corn, the thing with all these yield estimates and stuff, right, that we've done today is none of this corn is mature. None of it has black layered, which is when the corn is physiologically mature and no longer can add or subtract, well, can no longer add bushels. You can still subtract them if the corn falls down or anything else bad happens. But more rain won't help, more nutrients won't help, that kind of stuff. So, we're still adding starch and dry matter to those kernels up until black layer. And so we still need water there. So we can't let it run dry. Now, we don't have to irrigate right to black layer because there's some water in the soil, moisture, right? Especially if we would catch one more rain, we're probably done. But until we get down to half to a quarter milk line, we're going to keep pumping water. Well, we got our fuel in. I climbed up here to see if I could see it, and just barely. Just out there doing its thing. Watering my corn. Sweet. All right, let's go home. All right, well, I spent a little more time in the office here this afternoon. Believe it or not, it is just about time to order seed for next year. And I have made a few changes, not to the company that I'm working with, but how I'm selling through the company that I work with. We'll talk about it sometime. That time is not now. We need to talk about seed company stuff at some point, and why I have the contentious YouTube relationship with them that I do. I really don't. Like, I like my company. We get along really well. Just, yeah, we'll talk about it some other time. But point being, in order to make seed buying decisions, I need to know what's going to get planted where next year and how many acres of every crop that we are going to have. And so while that's usually a fairly straightforward process, we just follow our rotation. We kind of already had determined where we were going to plant wheat this fall before I made seeding recommendations or seeding plans for this year, for this spring. So that was done a long time ago, so we're just kind of following through with that. One thing that is going to throw a little wrench into plans for next year is that I want to go corn on that irrigated field up there. Well, that's a 175 acre field. That's a significant amount of acres to go corn on corn with, and it really throws off my rotation because it shorts me beans and makes me really long corn, which I'm okay with for 1 year, but then the problem is the following year will be very short corn, very heavy beans, unless we go corn on corn somewhere else. And yeah, so I'm just trying to decide the best way to do that now. One thing we could do is plant a little more wheat this fall than we were thinking about, but you got to factor grain markets and everything else into it as well. Of course, when all of the grain markets are terrible, all three crops, it doesn't really matter which one you plant too much. But anyway, so we're working through that. I'm actually trying to figure out where we're going to plant wheat in the fall of 25 for the 26 crop year. Again, that rotation thing. So we're working on all that kind of stuff right now, and putting a plan together. And then I've put together a couple of seed quotes under my new system that I think is going to work out good. Now, tomorrow is Friday of Labor Day weekend. Look, our bench is almost clean. We got a few things to put away, but it's cleaned up at least. So I've been talking about it for 2 weeks now that we're cleaning the shop out. You can see we've got a tent over there, but the floor has been power washed, I think 3 times now. We've got her cleaned up pretty well in here. Why? Why are we doing this? Well, it's Labor Day weekend this weekend. I have 2 sisters that I think are coming home tonight, another one tomorrow. Everybody's going to be here, but this weekend is we have an event. On Sunday, it is my parents' 40th anniversary, and so us children, I think that's what we're still called, decided to have a little happy anniversary party for them. And so that's what we're getting ready for. It is this weekend with the holiday and everything. It was a good time for everybody to be home. So that's what we're doing here. Essentially throwing a graduation style party for my parents. So I went to the store today. We got 4 pork butts. We got a bunch of chicken. We're going to be grilling and cooking and smoking, and we got apparently all kinds of decorations going up in here. I think we've gone a little overboard, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So we're going to make sure we get everything cleaned up tomorrow. That's why I didn't put all the tables and chairs away down in the seed warehouse, because they're all just coming here, and there was no point in folding them all up, putting them back where they go, and then bringing them out and getting them down here. So that'll probably be something we do tomorrow as well. Just bring all of that stuff down here to get ready. I'm sure there'll be a shopping trip for food supplies done tomorrow. Point being, I'm probably not going to make a video tomorrow. I'm probably not going to make one through the weekend here. We might try and squeeze a live stream in sometime, likely on Monday afternoon, but we'll see. Labor Day weekend is also our town, Waldron's little town festival that they do every year. So Monday there's a parade and all kinds of other stuff going on. But yeah, so that's what we got going on in here, and that's why we've been cleaning up, and why you're not going to see me for a few days. So thanks for watching this one. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next week. Things pick up fast next week. We got a lot going on, so looking forward to having you guys back. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.